Okay, how to run a half marathon in 90 minutes or less. I'm going to talk to you about the whole training schedule. I'm going to talk to you about specific sessions, the faster sessions, the longer sessions. I'm also going to talk to you about nutrition. I'm also going to give you the pacing strategy and another couple of nuggets that you may or may not already be inserting into your training that if you do these things, it's going to help out the whole picture. It's going to make you a better athlete and a faster runner. Now, first of all, the training schedule. I always look at about 12 to 13 weeks of specific focus work in order to get right to train to a specific goal like the half marathon. Depends on where you are at the moment and what your starting point. The pace that you're going to need to run for the half marathon to get 90 minutes or less is 4:15 per kilometer or 6:50 per mile. So you need to think of where you are at the moment. How long can you hold that pace for? If you can only hold it for a kilometer, and then it gets very difficult, it's going to take you much longer than somebody that can already run, for example, 93 minutes for the half marathon, or the equivalent time, the equivalent 90-minute half marathon time for 10K. So it's important to think about what is our starting point and what is achievable and realistic for us, of course. Then what I would look at, the pacing strategy. You want to be going out and getting to a point where half marathon pace, 4:15 per kilometer, feels comfortable for around about the first 16 to 18K. That's quite a long time. It's 10 or 10 plus miles in order for that to feel comfortable for you so you can really dig in at the end. And we need to be thinking about that in our training, specifically in the interval sessions and the faster sessions, but also in the long runs. I'm going to come on to those specific sessions now. Now, in terms of the faster sessions, we want to teach our body to be going at half marathon pace and faster. If we're training at half marathon pace and putting together some volume at that pace, it's going to make it all make sense and it's going to make it comfortable for us. If we train faster than half marathon pace, it's also going to make race pace feel much more comfortable. So if we get comfortable at running shorter distances, whether it's 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, 5 minute, quicker than half marathon pace by 10 or 20%, half marathon pace, race pace, all of a sudden feels very comfortable. And that allows us to get to 16 to 18 kilometers and for it to feel comfortable. What I want from the training program, especially if you've not inserted structure and thought about some of these things I'm going to speak about in this video, I want you to get towards the end of the training program when it gets to the taper and for you to be thinking, actually the training indicates that I'm capable of way faster than 90 minutes. That's where you want to be. You want to be confident in your training, but also aware that it's the consistency and discipline over the weeks that's going to put you there and going to get you in a place where it's achievable for you to hit 90 minutes or less. In terms of the faster sessions, I want to be working with between 6 and 10,000 meters, between 6K and 10K of total volume. And that might look something like 6 times a mile with 60 seconds rest in between. And what I want from that session is I want to be hitting that at half marathon pace. I want to be boxing off 6 times a mile, 1,600 meters in half marathon pace, and I want it to feel quite comfortable within me. I'm seeing my heart rate elevate. It's getting up to those points that it probably will be 3 months later or 2 to 3 months later, depending on when you do that session. It's getting up there where it will be in the race, but I'm getting comfortable at running quite a long period of time, 6 miles or about 10K for half marathon pace. Really, really important. I'd want to run some faster stuff as well. So I'd put in something like 8 times 800 meters, and I'd want to be running that at 10K pace. 10K pace, for if you're looking at half marathon, we're looking at something like 10 to 15% faster than our half marathon pace. They're very closely correlated, 10K and half marathon. And usually a good 10K runner is going to be, with the endurance and stamina that he gets from his endurance, it's going to be a good half marathon runner as well. But if we work on that 8 times 800 meter session with 60 seconds rest in between, we're working on running faster than half marathon pace, which is going to make the pace feel easy to run half marathon pace. It's all about feeding in. So we're building that speed, we're building that raw efficiency essentially over the ground in the speed in the interval session so that that weekend long run starts to feel easier, and when we insert some specific long runs later, it's comfortable to run at race pace or even faster during that long run. Next session I do is something like 15 times 400 meters. 400 meters will always be my go-to. Great distance. Very difficult to run 400 meters as fast as you can, but when you get control of this session and you really sort of run within yourself and learn to pace 15 times 400 meters with 60 seconds rest in between, It's going to be faster than half marathon pace. It's going to be faster than 10K pace. If you can run a little bit faster than 10K pace, then you are there or thereabouts for starting to run the bigger sessions, the longer intervals, ready to go for your half marathon pace. It's a good level of distance that as well, in order to run 6 kilometers at way faster than half marathon pace. And again, it's going to make it feel easy for you. Then I would go, my go-to sessions would be things like 10 times a kilometer. The 10 kilometers total volume again, but I want to be running that at 10K pace. So it's going to be a tough session, but you're essentially splitting 10K up into kilometers and having 60 seconds rest in between. Then for my long run, initially I'd be running long, slow distance. How far should you be running? Really, really good question. I would want to be running between 26 and 28K if I'm going to be running the half marathon. Now, a lot of people will think, oh, it's way too far. I'm only going to be running 21K on the day. It's exactly the same for a marathon. You don't want any new area, any undiscovered territory when you're going into race day. So if you're used to running slower for 26 to 28K, it's going to mentally and physically make the half marathon race day feel more comfortable. So I'd build up to a point, and whatever your start point at the moment is for your long run, if that's 12K or 15K, that's your starting point. But if you build up to 26 to 28K and just have that something around 20 to 30% slower than the intended race pace, so 20 to 30% slower than 4:15 pace per kilometer, that's it should feel nice and comfortable for you. What you would then be doing is inserting something like a progression run. So nice 18K progressive run where you're starting with the first 6 kilometers at something like 20% slower. So that's nice and easy for you, 20% slower than 4:15 per kilometer for half marathon pace, and then maybe 10% for the next 6 kilometers, and then the final 6 kilometers you want to be running at half marathon pace. What that does for you is mentally, it's like, it's a good session, 18 kilometers. Started slower, but it's a faster finish. And it puts you mentally in a good place to be able to run the half marathon in that intended race pace. But also it gets you used to running a negative split, gets you used to winding it up in the second half and running quicker, which is really gonna help your overall running, but your race time, big time. It's a really, really good one. Then what I'd wanna be doing as sort of fundamental long runs is between 20 and 24K with segment during the middle of half marathon pace effort. So segments, and they may start at 4 kilometers. And it might just be, okay, I'm gonna do 4 kilometers at 4:15 per kilometer pace, but that's segued into 16 kilometers. And then all of a sudden it's 18 kilometers and 20 kilometers up to 24 kilometers. And that middle portion might grow to 10 kilometers. So 24K long run with the middle 10K half marathon pace. Again, it's going to put you in a great place. It's building endurance, but it's building specific pace and volume and work at that race pace where you want to be. Really, really, really important. What I would then start to think about, super important right from the start this, is you want to get your nutrition right for race day. And a lot of people think about this when it's too late. They think about it at the expo or on the morning of the race or the week before the race. You've got to, please take this from me, don't make the mistakes that I made for the first 5 years of my career. If you get to a point where you're taking between 70 and 80 grams of carbohydrate per hour during your racing, but also during the key sessions, the long run and the interval session, so you're teaching your stomach to take in either sports drink or gels, running far or running fast, you're going to not only improve your race day in terms of you're used to taking sports drink or gels in, and therefore you get the energy and you don't hit the wall and your muscles not fatiguing in the same way. What you're also going to do is teach yourself that you can go hard on long run day. You can go hard on interval session because you're not getting the same muscle breakdown as if you weren't having any carbohydrate. Incredibly important to train the stomach to take in the right amount of carbohydrate, but also to improve and optimize the total training schedule. Really important. Hope you got something from that. You can apply those times to whatever time you're trying to achieve in the half marathon. So the best way to do that, if you take, for instance, the interval session, 10 times 1 kilometer, which would have been in 4:15 per kilometer, adjust that for your times. And it might be that you do 10 times 4 minutes, for example, for your half marathon. Good luck, and if you've got anything from this, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, help the channel out. And if you have any questions, pop them in the comments below.